Hello and welcome to this briefing by the Jerusalem Press Club. I am Jonathan Beck, Director of Content. As the war between Israel and Hamas continues in southern Israel, Hezbollah maintains a sort of quid pro quo equation of violence with Israel in order to keep its forces occupied and basically conduct a war of attrition. Meanwhile, a huge number of residents remain evacuated from their homes in the north, having been ordered by the government to do so for fear Hezbollah will open a second front. This happened back in October. This week, the Shiite group's second in command, Naim Qassem, said quite plainly that the moment Israel stops fighting in Gaza and pulls out its forces, Hezbollah will also stop firing rockets on Israel north. Our guest to discuss on this today is Miri Eisin. Miri served as a colonel in the IDF and over a storied career of 20 years, served in several intelligence roles, both in the combat, in the field, and in research. After this, she served as the Prime Minister's international media advisor from the Second Lebanon War in 2006 until the end of 2007. And she's also a founding member of Forum for promoting women in policy and national security roles. Hello, Miri, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning to everybody.
Yesterday, we had a briefing here with Brigadier General Amir Vivi in reserve, and he said Israel should brace for a very lengthy sort of raids or attrition war with Hamas in the south. How does this fit in with what I just said above about Naim Qassem, who said, so long as you fight in the south, we'll be fighting in the north, and the pressure of the evacuees? Can you tell us how the northern front is looking today?
Hezbollah, from the beginning of this war, literally from October 8th, have attacked Israel, inside Israel, in the communities, every single day. Not just Naim Qassem, the Deputy Secretary General, but also Hassan Nasrallah, in his own voice, in his weekly, bi-weekly, he gives a lot of different talks, has said very clearly, as long as, from their perspective, Israel continues the fight against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, we, Hezbollah, will be helping out on the northern front. But as you described before, this is not a helping out. This is, I'm going to call it, a war of attrition that's it has undefined boundaries, but it is with very full capabilities. Hezbollah is using a variety of weaponry. They literally make it look like Hamas on steroids. And if it escalates more, it will be a very challenging full-scale war.
Also, unlike Hamas, despite the attacks from both sides, and I think we're counting maybe 370 or so dead Hezbollah operatives, it doesn't seem like there's a dent in the Shiite group's ability to launch rockets and attacks. But can you please tell us, I mean, this helping out thing, this is a Shiite group, and this is a Sunni group in Gaza, so in the Gaza Strip. So is this decided by Naim Qassem and Nasrallah, or is this all directed from Tehran?
It's one of those things where I don't know the answer. And all of us different experts who say we know the answer, we're all giving our assumption. I know people who very strongly think that this is all being guided from the Islamic regime of Iran. And perhaps it's so, there's no question that they have their finger in the pie. But what's the thing that's in common between Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Islamic regime of Iran is both the term of Al-Quds, Al-Aqsa. It is an Islamic aspect that they use extensively. It's the term of the resistance. And what are they resisting? This isn't about resisting the West. This is about resisting the existence of the state of Israel, of Zionism as it exists. So they have a very clear-cut meeting point, and they have a very clear-cut agenda. Why is Hezbollah attacking Israel with all of these different capabilities? This isn't about Israel, Lebanon, even if Hezbollah wants to pose it as such. This is about Hezbollah, the Islamic regime of Iran, and Hamas, that joint aspect of trying as much as possible to hit, destroy in a variety of different ways the state of Israel. And I don't want that to be in a shallow way. This is actually very deep, very ideological. Go into their websites, read it for yourselves. Don't believe me.
What about Hezbollah is very much involved in Lebanese politics. What about pressure? I mean, I know these voices are heard in Lebanon. People are saying, why are you fighting? Why did you put Lebanon essentially at risk of a dangerous war with Israel to help out, Sunni Palestinians who are hundreds of miles away? Is there any chance of internal pressure from Lebanon stopping Hezbollah, or are they too deeply embedded in systems there to be swayed?
Well, Absolutely. What I do in day-to-day life is I read lots of different depictions of what's going on in Lebanon. The voice that you just heard, the one that you just voiced right now, is one that's absolutely out there. Why are you putting us at risk? You mentioned the fact that there are 80, maybe 100,000 Israelis who can't live in their homes, that Israel preemptively told them, move away, we'll give you alternative. I'm not saying it's great in Israel, but Israel did back it, did give them some kind of a cushion. In Lebanon, there's probably also 100,000 evacuees, and the state called Lebanon is a failed state. It does not help its 100,000 evacuees. It's voluntary there that they're doing so. And this is because Israel has not sat quietly while Hezbollah attacks Israel every single day. We, attack back every single attack against us. And here's the challenge also of escalation. We also preemptively attack against Hezbollah, cache of weapons, different launch sites, and against senior and other types of leadership inside Hezbollah. And that preemptive brings back an additional Hezbollah attack against us. And that's also that escalation. So there are voices in Lebanon that are against Hezbollah. But I was just reading this morning in the BBC, of all things, the voices that say that it's all Israel, we're here, it's Israel attacking and killing us, and none of them mention Hezbollah. So there are different voices, and we need to note both of them.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you tell us in this game? I mean, I know we're striking back, etc. I think 2 days ago it was Miri Eisin who said on the radio that basically what Israel is doing is the right thing in the sense of not remaining silent against Hezbollah attacks, but it's very dangerous if either them or us succeed too much in an attack with too much collateral damage, etc. Then this might all spiral out of control. Is Israel basically prepared for that eventuality regarding munitions, reserves, etc., and all these aspects? Because this is a different war than the Hamas war, obviously.
Yeah, as I said before, it's kind of Hamas on steroids. I say it in that sense because the military physical terror capabilities that Hezbollah holds are the equivalent of most of the countries in the world don't have what Hezbollah has. And every single one of the people watching right now, if you're journalists, wherever you are from the world, go look and see the comparison of the munitions, the capabilities, the UAVs, the swarms of drones, all of the different capabilities that the Islamic regime of Iran and Syria under Bashar al-Assad have supplied to Hezbollah, where they have this. It's really hard to believe because they're a non-state actor. You said before they're a political party. So what Miri Eisin in that sense is saying is that challenge right now of, and excuse my English, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And you have to make choices at the end. What do we do right now? We have literally almost 100,000 Israelis who can't live in their homes. What do you tell them? Go back home. It'll be okay. On the other side of the border, they have the ground capabilities to do the kind of attack that Hamas did on October 7th. They have air capabilities and projectiles that will make the second Lebanon war and the first few days or weeks of this war look like play game because they can send in swarms of suicide drones. And that means that we will be able to protect ourselves, but not in the way that we saw in the aftermath of October 7th, because we did not protect ourselves on October 7th. The preemptive evacuation is part of the protection. The fact that Israel is attacking daily a lot of different targets in southern Lebanon is preemptive against a ground attack against Israel. The fact that we're trying to take out both drones, UAVs, anti-tank guided missiles, there's a variety of projectiles that they're using. That's part of our capabilities. Can we withstand Hezbollah's attack? Yes. Will it do damage in Israel? And I'll even say in some cases, significant damage? Yes, but we'll get past that. I mean, that is why it's a horrible war, and you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
Okay, thank you for that, Miri. So let me, from that response, segue directly to a question from a reporter. Since essentially Israel lost what seems to be the deterrence it had, what is the disincentive that Hezbollah now has from not, escalating the attacks with northern Israel?
So first of all, you mentioned before that Hezbollah is a Shiite organization, but let's be very clear to everybody. Hezbollah is a Lebanese Arabic-speaking Shiite organization. Yes, it was inspired by the Islamic regime, the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, slowly established by 1982-83, but it is Lebanese Arabic-speaking. All of you know, I hope, that Lebanon not just is a failed country, but that they have not had a census to count and to designate who the Lebanese are from 1932. And there's no question that the Shiites of Lebanon, which Hezbollah certainly represent, are most likely half the population. And I say that because that is the disincentive, meaning the what can impact Hezbollah, not both as a terror organization, but as a political party for their own continuity, is if their base is not happy. And right now, their base in southern Lebanon, the people who live there can't live there. Nobody gives them, package, go to a hotel. Not that that's nice, but a little bit of backing that at least the state of Israel is trying to give, and civil society in Israel is helping out in that sense. You don't have that in Lebanon. So that's going to be one. The second one, which may surprise most people, is that Hezbollah, I don't know if that'll surprise them, Hezbollah at the end is the Islamic regime, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, Khamenei. It's the picture poster boy. And it was given an enormous amount of weapons not to attack and destroy Israel. Not that that's a bad thing, but they were given those weapons to be the forward defense against anybody attacking the Islamic regime of Iran in Iran. So that's also a sentient aspect, meaning if Iran really felt threatened, then that's something that could impact Hezbollah into stopping their attacks against Israel. So those are two vastly different aspects. What Israel is doing in its attacks definitely impacts them, but it's much more about defensive than offensive, what Israel is doing.
Okay, thank you. Can you say another follow-up on the question? Is Hezbollah likely to stop its attacks even if a deal is reached between Israel and Hamas with the hostages, or even if Israel reaches its war goals and pulls out of Gaza without a deal? Will they basically kind of on their own volition withdraw to the 701 lines? Or
I don't think they'll withdraw to the 1701 lines, but I absolutely think that they would immediately stop it. Meaning when they say that voice that we're doing this because of Palestine, because of Gaza, because of Al-Quds, because of Al-Aqsa, they've always said that when Israel stops firing in the south, they will stop firing. And I'll remind you all that last year, at the end of November, beginning of December, in that short time period where we had exchanges and 50 women and children were let out of Hamas captivity at that time, almost 100, at the end at that time, in a series of exchanges, Hezbollah held their fire. And one of the big questions inside Israel at that time was, should we have not then continued our preemption? Because we did not attack Hezbollah sites at that time because we wanted to get back as many people as possible. So yes, I absolutely think that if down south it ends, it would also stop Hezbollah. I don't know if that means that we would stop. As I said, if I was somebody who lives up north in Kiryat Shmone, I would not go back home because Hezbollah stopped. That would not be enough for me after what they've done. This isn't about the future. In 9 months, Hezbollah have created havoc in a city of 24,000 people, where they target, including last night or this morning, they fire into the city, destroying the infrastructure, the buildings, the homes, every single day.
Okay, I have a few more questions from reporters that I want to ask before the briefing is over, but I have to ask my own question. Essentially, at some point, this is going to have to be done. What you're saying is, if Hezbollah stops and quiet returns and the residents come back, it's gonna be like, you can sleep next to the tiger because the tiger is asleep. But as a threat and ideologically, they'll still want the destruction of Israel, regardless of the Sheba farms or whatever cockamamie reason there is. There's always a reason for them to fight Israel. So as a military threat, they'll always be there, right? As threatening us.
So I'm going to say very sadly, Jonathan, that what you just said right now is the crux of geopolitics in the Middle East. This is not something new. It has something to do also with Hamas, because Hamas is going to continue to exist after the end of this war. Hezbollah will continue to exist. Hamas is Palestinian deep inside. Hezbollah is Lebanese Shiite deep inside. And both of them are not political players. They are terror organizations that went into politics. And when we look at them as political players and we say they're both political and terror, I feel, that's my point of view, that you're all playing a game, because a terror organization that goes into politics and does not renounce terrorism, keeps its private army for its own use, is a terror organization doing politics. And that's true of Hamas, and that's true of Hezbollah, and that means that there is no happily ever after. It means that either you have to build a different kind of protection, and you have to ask the Israelis if they're willing to go back and move there. But you know what, Jonathan, I don't live up on the northern border. How comfortable do I feel knowing that they have capabilities that can seriously damage Israel's airport? All sorts of, because that's what they're going to try and aim at, and they won't get directly to the airport, so it'll fall in my neighborhood. Oops, as they'll say. Israel has been very targeted. We're very aware of civilian life. I know most of you think not. We're targeting the terrorists, but a terror army, as opposed to a regular army, base themselves inside the civilians on purpose. And so I give that out there right now because there is no happily ever after, and it's very challenging.
Okay, I would like to just, express my own hope that after 10 months, maybe Hamas will exist as an idea, but no longer as a threatening entity. And it almost seems like we're getting there if they don't get to recruit too much. Let me please thank you so far for all this and ask you several questions that we have from reporters. Let me just try to kind of collate these. First of all, I have a question about, are there contacts between Lebanese Christians in Israel, and would Israel be protected to help them in any sense?
So Israel has a long, challenging history of contacts with different Christians in Lebanon. I'll remind you all of the 18 confessions in Lebanon. 12 are different Christian confessions. So which Christians? Are you talking about the Armenian Catholic, the Greek Catholic, the Melkite? Well, that's the Melkite, the Maronite, the Evangelical. There are just so many different groups there. So I absolutely understand the question. We've always had some kind of contact, but I don't think that, and Israel is always willing to help those who reach out. If Shiites come to the border and say, please save us, we're going to save them. We don't close the border. This is not about the individuals and the civilians. The issue here at the end is that more general politics, but it isn't something that now Israel, I want to hope as an Israeli, as somebody who was an officer already in the first Lebanon war, and then I was the prime minister's office in the second Lebanon war, that we won't make that very, to me, horrific mistake of the early 1980s of trying for Israel to define the politics of Lebanon, to help people anytime, any place.
Okay, another kind of related question to that. To what degree is the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, infiltrated by Hezbollah, if at all? Is the US supporting the LAF? And finally, to connect a question from a different reporter, what do you think is the role of the US in determining Israel's decision-making regarding Lebanon? And is President Biden some kind of element that is stopping Israel from striking at Hezbollah, etc., or not?
Well, vastly different questions. Lebanese army is an existing army. It has connections and relationships with, first of all, there are 44 different militaries that are in the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, and all of UNIFIL in 1701 is based on working with the Lebanese army. So that they have direct contacts. There isn't a lot of US presence inside UNIFIL, but there's lots of other, both European, Asian, African, all over the world countries that are in there. So the LAF used to be built where that's once upon a time, I'm giving the history lesson because it's important to what's happened to it. It used to be built that it had separate Shiite battalions, Sunni battalions, Druze battalions, Maronite battalions. The confessions had their own battalions and also their own brigades. They changed that over 25 years ago. And in time as that changed, what that means is, because it isn't the same kind of draft that you have here. If they're drafting the people, even though you don't have the numbers there, you don't have a census, then that means that 50% of the draftees are going to be Shiite. I give you the understanding of what that means. The commander of the army is always Maronite. There are different laws inside the way that it was built, but hey, who knows? So I take it as a given that the Lebanese army, it's not a question of being riddled by Hezbollah. It's very similar to Hamas inside UNRWA. And I mean, half the population supports Hamas, at least in the Gaza Strip. And UNRWA is the second largest employer. They don't ask, hi, do you support Hezbollah? Or sorry, Hamas, you can't come in. So that's going to be about the Lebanese army. The United States over the years has tried very much to resolve the border, the land border issue so that it won't be there as an excuse. And I can say as somebody who's both been inside the room and outside the room, and this is not something that started in the last 5 years. It existed when I was in the Prime Minister's office after Israel realigned on the border, and then 13 points came out, and then it turned into 16. And all of them, they're 100 meters. This isn't something, I literally think that Israel would be willing to, there's no problem. Okay, it's agricultural area, it's moving a fence. That's not the issue, because we moved a lot of things in 2000. The issue at the end is the Lebanese-Syrian border. The issue at the end is, so you do that, and then what? You have nothing with what's in it in that sense. If we have no border challenges with Lebanon, then Lebanon has then why are they not signing a peace treaty with Israel, like Jordan and like Egypt? And so it becomes much more complex than the actual negotiation over the border. And look how when both sides had a very strong interest, Lebanon as a country and Israel as a country, we actually have an agreed economic border in the water, a maritime one, and we can't resolve 13 points. There are very good written material about the 13 points in the border dispute. Did I answer all the questions?
Yes, I think so. So a really final one before I let you go. If there is a hot war with Hezbollah, is it likely to expect that Israel will reinstate a sort of buffer zone on the Lebanese side of the border, like the security belt?
No, I don't think so. That isn't the topography. This isn't the same as the topography of the Gaza Strip. And the Gaza Strip at the end, with great respect to everybody who's listening to us right now, the Gaza Strip is not an independent state. Lebanon is an independent state. Hezbollah is a non-state actor, Lebanese inside Lebanon. The buffer zone did not help Israel from 1982 to 2000. Pretty much from 1982, it wasn't really efficient anymore. I don't think that that's the thinking. Question is what else you do. What do you do? So I'm not saying that doesn't mean there won't be a ground engagement and that we won't go in and that we won't sit there for a while. But I don't see this as something that Israel would create a buffer zone, because I do see that as something that Israel is trying to create around the Gaza Strip. Because again, the communities themselves right up against the fence. So either you say you're moving the Israeli communities or you do some kind of a buffer zone to at least stop that immediate threat on the line itself. But that's a future question that we'll see once we get past this immediate challenging future.
Okay, Miri, thank you very much for this educating briefing. I would just like to say this will be later available on the Jerusalem Press Club's YouTube channel. And starting August 1, invitations to these briefings will be sent only to our members. We have a membership form on the website, and I urge all the other reporters listening and those who will see it on YouTube to check it out. Thank you again, Miri, for your time and the information.